Hey YouTube, Romeko here. I'm here to do a deck check for green-red aggro. So I'm going to start off with the land base here, and we're going to talk about the fact that there's 4 Rootbound Crag, 4 Copperline Gorge, 4 Kessig Wolf Run, 1 Mountain, and 10 Forest, and that makes up 23 land. The majority of the things that you're going to be playing in this deck are green, so you need that green mana base primarily. The Wolf Run is just to ramp up some, it's just to kind of give certain creatures a power boost and trample. And on top of that, the red is just for the burn spells, as well as Bonfire of the Damned, which we'll get to later. So we'll start off with the creature base. We have 8 mana dorks, 4 Birds of Paradise, 4 Llanowar Elves, and then for 2 converted mana cost of 2, we have 4 Strangleroot Geist, which is amazing. It's a very valuable card in the sense that it comes back after it's dead, and it's more powerful, so you get quite a bit of use out of him. For the 3 mana slot, we have Wolfear Avenger, 4 of those as well. And for the 4 mana slot, we have Huntmaster of the Fells, 4 of that. Everything that you've seen in this deck so far, you've noticed that it provides additional value in addition to just being a 4 for like a 4 mana cost, or like a 2/2 for like a 3 mana cost or something like that. It's very, it adds value to the actual board state. For 5, we have just 1 Thragtusk and 1 Wolfear Silverheart, and lastly we also have 1 Thrun the Last Troll. The fact that we have 4 Green Sun Zenith in this deck allows us to pull out anything we want in this deck. Pretty much anything. There's actually no creature in this deck that we can't bring out if we wanted to. So with that being said, let's move on to the spells. And the Green Sun Zenith actually adds a lot of versatility, because if in your sideboard you have such things as like Viridian Corruptor, you only need to put 1 of that in your sideboard, because you can just pull it out with Green Sun Zenith. So any green creature, it actually gives you almost like a additional 4 copies of, for 1 extra mana per se. We have 3 Bonfire of the Damned, and this is the most useful card in Standard right now, and also the most devastating card, because for 1x, it's almost like an earthquake that just affects your opponents, and that's crazy. And it also hits flying creatures. It's insane. And they take damage from it. So there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't play this card. I'm only playing 3 because I don't want to start off with Bonfire of the Damned in my opening hand. Also, that you've noticed that we have enough mana dorks, as well as 23 mana, that even if we do have Bonfire of the Damned at some point and we just don't want to use it for whatever reason, we can hold on to it because we'll have enough mana to play the Bonfire of the Damned at almost any point in the game. We have 2 Incinerates because we need that instant removal sometimes, and it's almost the difference between winning and losing when you have a stalled board state. You've noticed that most of our instants and sorceries, or rather sorceries, so the only 2 instants in this deck, in the main deck anyway, are the Incinerates, and you definitely need that to clear away some of your opponent's blocking creatures sometimes. The Pillar of Flame is just an additional removal spell for things like Delver's Secrets. The zombie deck has some cards that are recurring and they come back, and this definitely is, it's better to have this on board than to kind of sideboard it in later, but we do have 2 of these in the sideboard. Now finally for this deck, we have 2 Sword of War and Peace and 2 Sword of Feast and Famine. The most played decks in this format are Delver and other green-red aggro decks and Esper Control. So with that being said, this protects against all the colors except for blue, but when you're facing Delver, you actually want to be able to play what you need. You want to be able to do more damage than them, faster than them, and have more life than them to outlive them. So they're essentially cards that work very well against everything in the current metagame, and you have 2 of each, just so it kind of balances it out. And as you've noticed, the primary strategy of this game is to bring out the creatures that your opponents just can't match up against. So when Delver comes down on turn 1, by turn 1 you should probably have one of these 2 out. by turn 2, you should probably have at least this, or probably this out. And by turn 3 or 4, you're looking at perhaps a Thrag Tusk, perhaps even a Huntmaster of Fells, maybe even a Wolffish Silverheart, and you're swinging in for 7, 8, who knows, right? And by turn 4 or 5, you've got them in a point where you can swing for quite a number of damage, or you just gridlock the board with Sword of Feast and Famine, where every time you're doing damage, you're untapping everything that you have, and they're discarding once, or they're losing cards. You're gaining a lot of the advantage. And to help you out, the Kessig Wolf Run allows you to add extra, I guess, power to your creatures, as well as give you trample to get over some of the creatures that they might have. There's been a point in this game, in a game that I was having, where early game, turn 3, I brought out a Sword of War and Peace, and I equipped it to the Birds of Paradise, and a 2/3 Birds of Paradise was hitting somebody who was playing Delver for 5 every single turn, and it was insane. By turn 5, they were down to 3 life. And essentially, this is the kind of deck that's very versatile and allows you to play what you want without really feeling like you're afraid to play what you want or afraid to be countered. What else? So that's it for the deck tech. I'm not going to show you the sideboard because, once again, in all my videos, the sideboard is entirely dependent on the meta. And depending on how you are doing in your locals or what people in your locals play, the sideboard might be very different, and I feel that it's entirely dependent on what you choose to play. You might be wondering why there's no Rancor in this deck, and that is a recent addition I'm looking at, but currently this deck has been working very well, irrespective of Rancor. But I know that if I've had Rancor, that Birds of Paradise would have been like a 4-3, or something like that, and the game would have probably ended a lot faster. So Rancor is an interesting addition. Maybe I would cut 2 of these swords and maybe put Rancor, I'm not sure, but it's something that I'm looking into still. But I'll be back with more deck techs, and thanks again for watching, guys.